My name is Kathy. I'm the director of the National Marine Life Center in Bourne, and we are a nonprofit marine animal hospital and science and education center. And we're out here at Scusset Beach State Reservation today for a celebratory event, the release of 3 of our rehabilitated seals. The first seal is Jones. He is a harbor seal. He originally stranded last year as a premature harbor seal pup. This often happens when the moms leave their pups on shore and go offshore to feed, and sometimes people interfere with that, and so the moms and pups get separated. He came to us and was rehabilitated for about 4 months last year with the National Marine Life Center in Bourne, and we released him back into the wild just before Thanksgiving. Now, he had, among other problems, he had a very severe ear infection, and so we wanted to put a satellite tag on him to see how he did after being healed from his various illnesses. He restranded then in January, and he stranded in Maine, was rescued by the Marine Mammals of Maine, the group rescue group up there, and he had a number of infections, including a parasitic infection, as well as a resurgence of his ear disease. We brought him in to the National Marine Life Center, and we were able to treat all the infections, and I'm pleased to say that as of a couple weeks ago, he's been certified at good health by our veterinarian, and his ear has healed, his infections have healed, so he is ready to go back out to the wild again. You will see a satellite tag, a device on his back that will help us track him to monitor his progress. The second animal that we're releasing is Mandrake, and Mandrake is a yearling male harp seal. Harp seals are ice seals. They spend most of their lives up north on the ice fields, and this year in Massachusetts we're seeing a lot more harp seals than normal. One thing that we think might be happening is that with global climate change and the warming of the Gulf of Maine, there's a lot less habitat for these animals up north. So some of the younger animals are getting pushed farther south while they're still young. So Mandrake stranded in New Hampshire. He was rescued from Rye, New Hampshire by our friends at the Seacoast Science Center. He was suffering from a variety of infections, including a parasitic infection and some respiratory disease. And so we treated him for a number of illnesses, and I'm pleased to say again, he is ready to go back to the wild. Third animal is Buckbeak, and Buckbeak is a male harp seal yearling, like Mandrake. He stranded about a few weeks later, also up in New Hampshire, rescued again by the Seacoast Science Center, and he was suffering from similar illnesses, a parasitic infection, anemia, and respiratory distress. So these 2 harp seals are ready to go back in the wild now. They're fully healed, and we look forward to seeing them off today. Marine Life Center seal release today went off without a hitch. We were very excited to see the animals just make a beeline for the water, which is so much fun. And they seem to have such joy in kind of getting back to their habitat and getting away from us, which is fantastic. We don't take it personally. We actually love to see that. Buckbeak, as you might have seen, had a little bit of acclimation as he went in and out of the water. That's completely normal. We see that a lot. Seals naturally go in and out of the water. part of what the National Marine Life Center does is participate in a number of conservation projects, and one is run by the State Division of Endangered Species, a Natural Heritage and Endangered Species program out of Mass Wildlife, and that is with these turtles over here, and these are federally listed endangered species of freshwater turtle called the red-bellied cooter. And 25 years ago, there were only 300 of these animals left in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Mass Wildlife started a Head Start program, which collects a number of newborn hatchlings and places them essentially in foster homes at various schools and nature centers for about 9 months, during a time when in the wild they would be brumating or hibernating. And over the course of 9 months, they put on the equivalent of 3 to 4 years worth of growth. So when we release them back in the spring, they're better able to compete in the wild. And for us, we've been participating in this program for over 10 years. We'd love to be a partner with Mass Wildlife on helping these endangered species. These are not rehab animals, they're Head Start animals. And in addition to participating in this conservation program, it also gives us an opportunity to involve some of our younger volunteers. For safety reasons, we have to have an age limit on who can work with our larger marine animals. Our youth volunteers who are interested in learning more about animal husbandry, as long as they're at least 14 years old, they can come in and help us with some of these native turtles. So every day of the week we have youth volunteers who help us with these red-bellied cooters. They help us with some of these other species. So this beautiful lady is Lindsay. She is a diamondback terrapin, and that's one of our native species of turtles. She was found out in Wellfleet in the salt marsh. So she's sort of a crossover between, she's not a sea turtle, but she's a semi-aquatic turtle, and she's non-releasable. So she was found by researchers out in Wellfleet. She has some physical deformities. Her right front flipper is partly amputated, her right front leg, I should say. This may have been an injury due to a predator when she was young, we don't know. Her rear legs, though, are partly paralyzed, and you can see they're misshapen. And unfortunately, she can't move around very well, either in the water or on land. So when the researchers found her, we were asked by state wildlife officials if we could provide her with a permanent home. And we decided that even though our business is releasing rehabilitated animals back into the wild, we wanted to be able to offer a home to Lindsay, in part because she's such an amazing animal. She's a wonderful ambassador species. She's one of our native turtles here in Barnstable County, and she offers a great opportunity also for our youth volunteers to learn more about animal husbandry and also about work responsibility by taking care of Lindsay. So she is a lot of fun. She's a very curious animal, and it's almost that time of year when our volunteers can take her outside for walks in the sunshine, which is fun for all of us as well. This little turtle is is another diamondback terrapin. He's a hatchling. He was born last year. Came to us only about the size of a quarter, and was found far away from a marsh, so it was someplace that he wasn't supposed to be. We asked the Barnstable County, who has a research project with this species, if we could participate in their program. It's another Head Start program. So they authorized us to participate in the program, where we are, again, providing a home for Kevin for the first 9 months of his life. And shortly he'll be released back into the wild, likely out in the Sandy Neck area. So we're happy to help with this, and again, it's been a favorite of our youth volunteers. I will say though, due to Kevin's engaging personality, he's got more personality per gram than probably any of the animals, and he also gets a lot of love and distant affection from all of our volunteers. He's just a very engaging animal and a very iconic species to Cape Cod. This is our educational classroom, and right now we're prepping for a couple of education festivals that we'll be out at this weekend. But the National Marine Life Center offers STEM-based, hands-on, inquiry-based educational programming to an average of 9,300 children and adults per year. We reach schools from all over Cape Cod, from all over Massachusetts actually, and occasionally we even have visitors from schools farther abroad. Last summer there was a wonderful team of young adults who came up here as part of a field trip with the National Aquarium in Baltimore to learn more about what we do and to learn some of our STEM-based programming. So we're excited to be involved with educating our future, because these kids are really what's going to make our future. We are available for educational programming 52 weeks a year. We do programs year-round, and we love to work with the schools and with every kind of group, from scouting groups, homeschools, day programs, anything to teach more about marine animals. And it's really, the animals offer the students, they offer this unique resource, because marine animals are a way for us to engage with children and to fold in other topics like science and technology and engineering and math. And there have actually been scientific studies that show that people learn more, that people are more kind of predisposed to learning, or that they forget some of their barriers that they might have against learning when animals are incorporated. It's why there's this movement right now to read with the dogs at the library, or to have therapy animals come into hospitals and nursing facilities. So we're fortunate that we have such iconic species in the seals and sea turtles that we rehabilitate here, and we can use those topics and the topics of stranding and rehabilitation and release in order to excite kids about the science of our ocean and about ocean conservation. This is the National Marine Life Center's Marine Animal Discovery Center, and it's the public face of our organization. So we are open 365 days a year to helping marine animals for our core mission of wildlife rehabilitation. As I mentioned before, we're open 52 weeks a year for educational programmings, and every business day for our general business operations. We open to the public seasonally, like many other cultural attractions and seasonal businesses in Bourne and throughout Cape Cod. So we're open every day during the summer. We also open up during the February and April vacation weeks to provide some learning opportunities and some just activities for people who are looking to do some things with their children. So we have a small visitor center. We're open most of the time for free. Occasionally we have special fundraising events where we charge a couple bucks to get in, but it's nominal, and it all goes to help the animals. And we teach people about the different animals, about sea turtles, natural history and conservation, about seals, natural history and conservation, and about cetaceans, dolphins, porpoises, and whales, and their natural history and conservation. And why these animals are so important to us as Bourne residents, as Cape Cod residents, and as citizens of the planet, because these are animals that are like sentinels of the ocean ecosystem. They're really telling us what's going on in the ocean, and all life on this planet depends on a healthy ocean. And so by helping the animals, by studying why they get sick, we can learn more about different things going on in the ocean, things that can also impact us as people. So I get excited about it, not only about the animals, but about the science and about the education, and I love talking to people about it. And there's a lot of misconception that people think that we're an aquarium, and maybe we need to come up with a better name. I'm open to suggestions. But we really, our core mission is as a marine animal hospital and science and education center. And so the animals coming through our facility are not here permanently. They're here for rehabilitation. They're here so that we can learn from them while they're recuperating, and then we release them back out into the wild. And we think that's a pretty exciting thing to do. So as animals that are wild animals and recovering and eventually going to be releasable, these are not animals that would benefit from human interaction, nor would it be very safe or practical for the people to get too close to them. So as an alternative, we've got live cameras into our hospital. There's often a lot of activities with our animal care staff and volunteers. People can observe the feeding of the sea turtles, tubing young harbor seal pups, and any of the activities that are happening with the animals from the safety of these cameras. And we always have some of our volunteers and interns who work with the animals on a daily basis, who can talk with the visitors about wildlife rehabilitation and what we do. You just saw a seal release. We have one remaining seal. That's Buckbeak. He's a gray seal. and he had to have his tail amputated. He came in as a newly weaned pup, was rescued in New Hampshire, and we don't know what kind of predator attacked him, but he was found with some severe injuries. Now, one of our veterinarians had to actually amputate part of his tail, but I'm pleased to say that was able to stave off any further infection, and he's since made some really great progress, and we hope to be releasing him again within the next few weeks. There'll be 3 other animals in our hospital right now. These are 3 Kemp's Ridley sea turtles. And the Kemp's Ridley turtle is the most endangered sea turtle in the world. It's also the one that strands most often on Cape Cod. And the reason for this has to do with their natural history cycles. The Kemp's Ridleys are born in the south. Most of the animals of the species are born off of the coast of Mexico in a place called Rancho Nuevo. These animals were so numerous 40, 60 years ago. There were over 40,000 nesting females on one beach in Mexico. 20 years later, there were fewer than 1,000. Their population numbers are starting to come up, in part due to conservation measures like rehabilitating these endangered species. Now, why they come into Cape Cod is as young hatchlings, they float on the Gulf Stream. They follow the Gulf Stream for a number of years. If the Gulf Stream happens to be up north, at some point the animals leave the Gulf Stream and come closer to shore. And if the Gulf Stream comes up north, and of course Cape Cod is like an arm, some number of these turtles come into Cape Cod Bay. In the summertime, we've got great habitat for them. It's why we all love Cape Cod so much. There's plenty of food, the water's warm enough, but as cold-blooded reptiles, these animals have to stay in water ideally above 70 degrees. So as fall starts to come, they try to migrate south, and they get trapped inside the arm of Cape Cod. They progressively get colder and colder, and they go into a state of severe hypothermia called cold stunning. And this is where the turtle various turtle rescue efforts come forth. Mass Audubon at Wellfleet has a rescue effort for stranded turtles. The New England Aquarium has an emergency room and turtle hospital up in Quincy. And then we're like the long-time rehabilitation center, so we take a portion of those turtles for long-term ongoing rehabilitation. This past year was the second highest turtle stranding year ever. There were over 800 that stranded. We had 34 of these animals here at the National Marine Life Center. Pleased to say we've released 31 of them so far down in Florida, working collaboratively with other groups to get them there. And the 3 remaining still have some ongoing health issues, so we'll have them for a little while longer. We have a couple other beautiful ladies that I want to point out in this room. This is Daisy, and Violet is hiding. Where is she hiding? Right around the corner. Yeah, here she is. She's over here. These are box turtles. Not a marine species at all, and not an aquatic species at all. But these animals have a really compelling conservation story themselves. Several years ago, we were asked by officials from Mass Wildlife if we could provide a home for a couple of these box turtles, which are a species of concern within the state of within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They had been rescued from an abusive and an illegal situation in New Bedford, where they were being held among a group of turtles that was being held and ultimately killed for the wildlife product trade, the illegal wildlife product trade. Along the way, they were also being treated very inhumanely. So these 2 girls were, I should say, adult females, were rescued by Mass Wildlife officials. And they unfortunately can't ever be released because of what they may have been exposed to during their capture, because we don't know where they came from, if they even came from Massachusetts at all. They unfortunately have to be in full-time captivity. So we thought that their story was so compelling. They're a wonderful symbol against the horrors of wildlife trade, of the illegal wildlife trade, and they're just beautiful animals. So we were happy to provide these 2 with a home. for us educationally too, it does offer some comparison for our class groups coming in between the shape of a land turtle versus the shape of a sea turtle. And it's also another area where our junior volunteers, our youth animal care volunteers, can really make an impact, because these two turtles are again some of their animals that they will come in, that the high school students will come in and take care of as part of their volunteerism. So this room serves a couple of purposes. It's our diagnostic laboratory, it's our intensive care area, and it's also our parasitology laboratory. So we have, thanks to the generosity of a number of local foundations, including the Bill Zekian Family Foundation, we have a X-ray processor where we can take digital X-rays of the animals. We've got some veterinary monitor and equipment over here. We have, thanks to other donors like Tim Hines and Roberta Morris and some number of foundations, we have some blood machines over here that are allowing us to do diagnostic tests on the animals in our care. We also have a digital X-ray processor that we got thanks to a Prescott grant through the John H. Prescott Rescue Assistance Grant Program. And that allows us to take real-time radiographs or X-rays of our animals. Many of the issues can only be seen through X-ray. It can show us the turtles which come in hypothermic. Many of them have pneumonia, so we're able to see that and visualize that through our X-ray machine. A lot of the seals might have pneumonia as well. Sometimes we can see the extent of an ear disease in a seal by doing a dye contrast procedure called a canalography by X-raying their head. So there's a lot of really useful tools in here that we can use to diagnose and figure out how best to treat the animals in our care. This piece of equipment over here is an intensive care unit, and this is basically a veterinary incubator. So it can go to very low temperatures when the turtles first come in and they're hypothermic. We can't warm them up really fast, so we have to warm them up gradually, about 5 degrees per day. And it's set up for turtles right now. We can take as many as 8 sea turtles and warm them gradually. We can also use it as an intensive care unit for turtles that are that just need to maintain their temperature. They're not recovering as well. We had a number of turtles this year that were pretty weak, so they spent the night in the incubator and the day in the pool. As pup season comes around, we're about to see a lot of harbor seal pups in the next month or two, and some of these pups come in severely debilitated, separated from their moms, often because of human interference, and sometimes their lungs aren't fully developed, or they have severe respiratory issues. So we can also infuse oxygen into this unit, removing all the racks and setting it up for seals. And it's just really a very useful intensive care unit. Over here with the microscopes, we have some additional equipment, and these were funded by some corporate donors as well as the John H. Prescott Grant Program. We're able to evaluate urine and fecal samples and other kinds of samples from our animals. And then another purpose of this lab is we have, to our knowledge, the only marine mammal parasitology diagnostic laboratory in all of the United States. So we actually receive samples, hundreds of samples every year, from marine animal stranding agencies all over the United States who send us samples of parasites that were collected from stranded marine mammals, seals, dolphins, whales, sea lions, anything like that. And our veterinarian, Dr. Williams, and our lab technician, Leah Vandermeer, are able to analyze the samples, identify the parasites, and produce a report, a diagnostic report, back to the agency as far as what those samples, how those samples might have impacted the animals and what those samples are. So it's a tremendously popular service. We always have more samples than we can process at any one time, so we're definitely appreciative of the both of the funding we get for it and also of the interest in this laboratory. Parasites are really something most people don't think about or don't like to think about, but they're very important in assessing health of any animal, also in assessing environmental trends, what kinds of parasites are infecting an animal, can tell you maybe where that animal has been, and there's a lot you can learn from studying gross little worms and stuff like that.
So now this building was here?
No,
This isn't new,
so
is it? Is this new?
this building is brand new. There was an old warehouse here. That was the old Grossman's Lumber Warehouse, and that was donated as part of the property. Initially, way back when, the founders actually thought that perhaps that building could be renovated, but it was really falling down around us. We had some temporary facilities in there, and then actually the roof started to collapse.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go ahead and get going. We had some a portion of the cost, so we decided to build in phases, and we wanted to kind of get some animal operations going as quickly as we could. So we have our patient ward that I'll show you in a minute. This open space is where we're eventually going to have tanks for whales, dolphins, and porpoises. But this is a brand new building, as is the pump house out back. We're able to draw in water from the Cape Cod Canal, and so between these two buildings we've spent so far $4.4 million in order to build capacity to where we are right now. So this is currently our animal kitchen, and as we build and expand out the rest of the hospital, it will eventually be our diagnostic suite. But right now, a number of things happen in here. It's sort of a central volunteer gathering place, and when I do school or student tours of the place, I do like to point out the chore board. And for anybody who wants to get into this business and take care of animals, any kind of animals really, but especially marine animals here, these are all the chores that our volunteers do each and every day. Weekly tasks, morning tasks, afternoon tasks. It's a lot of work to maintain a clean and healthful environment for our animals and to do whatever we can to get them better. We like to I don't know, for some reason I have a lot more fun doing animal dishes or laundry than I do doing my own laundry back home, but you know, I think a lot of volunteers feel the same way. But this is the kitchen where we prepare our food. Most of our animals eat some combination of herring and squid. We have some herring cut up for our turtles for their afternoon feed. These pieces inside the herring, those are actually vitamins, so we have to supplement the food with vitamins. There's some pieces of squid there because the animals like squid and herring. And then we have a seal that will be getting some fish a little bit later on today. This is also where we test the water quality. It's important to have that daily water quality testing, and we have the equipment here to do that. Everything is a learning opportunity for our volunteers and our several dozen interns and students and work study students who come through here every year. So we have students who do the water quality testing and get that kind of experience, get the important data that we need in order to keep the animals healthy, and also have some real world experience in what it's like to maintain a habitat, maintain a living environment, taking water quality for scientific and health reasons. We have our animal charts. This, for example, is Hagrid's chart, and each of our animals has a paper chart for the day-to-day convenience of our volunteers. Our veterinarians make the orders, our animal care staff then prepare all the orders for the volunteers, and then the volunteers will implement the orders, make notes, do all the fees as necessary, and help with any procedures that might happen. The pertinent parts also get transferred to an electronic database online that our veterinarians, many of whom are volunteer and work remotely, can access in order to get the latest information about each of our patients. Again, multifactorial, it helps us maintain that long-term record so that we can understand, even going back into our records, how many seals have suffered from this disease, how many turtles have had osteolytic lesions, what were the different cases. We can find out more in order to improve treatment on any new animals and the next animals that come through our door. We can find out more to learn more about what's going on in the environment with these animals, and so having that long-term medical record is really important. The National Marine Life Center's patient ward. We do have a couple of animal enclosures outside of this room that are used for short-term holding or dry holding when an animal first comes in, or as kind of an isolation pen or a separate pen that we can quarantine. But this is where most of the work happens. We've got two 3,400-gallon rehabilitation tanks. They each can be set up for seals or turtles. We just transitioned them to seals so that the three that you saw today could have some big pool time before release and kind of get their exercise back up. And we have some other enclosures on the other side, and I'll show you. So these are empty now, but being cleaned and refilled so that we can put new seals in. We'll probably soon put Buckbeak in one of these pools. He's still a little weak. He has to regain his strength. And so part of the process when a sick seal first comes in, they're actually held in what we call dry holding. Seals don't have to be in water all the time, so if we can hold them in a dry room, it's kind of like a sick person being on bed rest. They can rest. We gradually introduce them to a kiddie pool so they can have some water time, taking it out when they get too tired, and then we move them to one of our pod units with a little deeper pool. As they get stronger, we eventually move them to our large pools so they can completely regain their strength before being released. This is Hagrid. He's a gray seal. He came to us about 5 weeks old as a recently weaned pup. He had severe injuries on his hindquarters that resulted in his tail being partly amputated. But he's on the mend, and we hope to be releasing him to the wild soon. And then these are the sea turtles. Looks like they recently had their breakfast, so they left a little mess in their tank, but these three animals came in. They're Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, the most endangered sea turtle in the world. They stranded last November because they were cold stunned or hypothermic, and they have some lingering health issues. 67, who's underneath 64 over there, has a broken rear flipper that we're hoping will heal. The others have some ongoing pneumonia and other issues that they're fighting. We welcome 9,800 people every year to our Marine Animal Discovery Center, which is open seasonally for residents and tourists alike. And we welcome people to come and learn more. Visit our website at nmlc.org. Visit us on Facebook at National Marine Life Center, Instagram at National Marine Life Center, Twitter, and find our YouTube channel at Save Marine Life. So we're glad to be a part of the town of Bourne. We love this community. We believe in Bourne, and we love that we're located here in this wonderful community along the banks of the beautiful Cape Cod Canal.